Well, folks, that flat out sucked. The Philadelphia Phillies choked away another winnable game on this road trip. Thank goodness they're heading home, but we'll talk about why this was a major missed opportunity amongst a couple major missed opportunities on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I forgot to even say that in the open today. I'm not exactly thrilled about where this team is right now, but that's okay. Thank you for checking us out anyway. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. You may know me from some other work in this media space. I've been a host on 97.5 The Fanatic for 5 years, the host of Locked On Phillies for 3 years, a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years. We come to you live as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. Get your notifications when new episodes are posted if you subscribe to the YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. The Philadelphia Phillies, as much as we love Booking.com, they're going to be glad to get back home to their own beds because this road trip has just been an absolute nightmare for them. And it shouldn't have been. I mean, Twins, solid team. Pirates, middle of the pack. But those are teams you should comfortably be able to handle and win series against. And the Philadelphia Phillies have now dropped 2 series in a row. The upside, they haven't been swept by any team in baseball. The Braves lost their first game of a doubleheader today. So it's like you're still gaining ground as far as a magic number is concerned. Not that I think July is the time to be talking about magic numbers, but still, like, overall, is this team still very, very talented? Yes. So let's start out with that. This team is still the best team in baseball by record. Right now, though, they don't really feel like it. And coming off of today's game, I know last night, I haven't had a chance to react to last night because we had the early game. I had some meetings this morning. So last night was a nice ninth inning rally, right? Zach Wheeler was outstanding. The offense was dormant. They found a way to scratch 3 across in the ninth against Yohan Duran, and you end up winning that game. Great. Was a little bit too close for comfort, and you were that close to getting swept out of Minnesota. I mean, you should have taken advantage of today's game. You had a 3-run lead, and there's so much that went wrong in this game. Now, I jumped on Postcast. You should go ahead and check it out. Our Locked On Phillies Postcast with Mark Farzetta. He does immediate reactions to every game. I jumped on today's episode, so I've already talked about this a little bit. You can go check out that episode for immediate reaction, a little bit more emotional. I've had about 30, 45 minutes now since the game ended to kind of collect my thoughts a little bit more than just saying, wow, this team sucked today. They were terrible. Brandon Marsh needed to catch that ball. But there's a lot of stuff that went wrong with this Philadelphia Phillies team in today's game. Where do we start? Now, the offense, I don't think was horrible, right? You look at the box score and you see 4 runs and you say, oh, they're probably better than that. But you had 9 hits. You had opportunities. If anything was wrong with the offense, it was missed opportunities. They had too many chances with runners in scoring position that they haven't had over the past couple of games that they just didn't cash in on. Now, seeing them get more runners in scoring position tells me that maybe they're getting closer to coming out of this, but it doesn't. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and baseball is neither of those things. So I can't really laud the offense for being close. I can laud Trey Turner for hitting another home run. He's still absolutely outstanding. I can laud Alec Boehm for going 2 for 3, Nick Castellanos for going 3 for 4 today. Casty had a great day at the plate following up his 2 RBI double last night. He had a great end to the series, but man, you just first off, too many missed opportunities for the offense. We're going to go in chronological order, not hierarchy order, right? Okay, I'm not saying that's the smallest issue. I'm just saying that was the first issue. Aaron Nola looked pretty darn good today. He went out there and gave you 6 innings. Now he allowed 6 hits. He danced out of danger a couple times, but only 1 earned run. He did walk 3, so not ideal there, but 6 strikeouts. The only run he gave up was on a home run, and that's vintage Aaron Nola, right? Work out of danger. Maybe you give up a bomb, but you get 6 innings of 1 earned run ball or 1 run in general ball from a starting pitcher. You need to go out and win that baseball game, especially with a lineup like the Philadelphia Phillies have. The bullpen, once again, guys, oh my goodness. It's just You can't win with guys that can't throw strikes or can't get batters out. And that's what the Philadelphia Phillies have had in the bullpen over this road trip. Ryan Kerkering, a really, really rough outing today. He only went 1/3 of an inning, and he ended up with 3 earned runs. Now, those are runs that were surrendered after he was out of the game. 2 walks, though. Like, he just put Matt Strahm, who came in after him, in a really rough spot. Gregory Soto in the ninth, who ended up taking the loss for this game. He goes out there in a tie game in the ninth. He didn't get the job done remotely. He couldn't find the strike zone. He was throwing balls to the backstop. He was nearly hitting guys every other pitch. We saw Seranthony Dominguez do that. Like, I don't know, man. I don't ever like to see relievers come into a game. Like, you give up hits, okay, maybe you don't have your best stuff. But you come into a game, you got to be mentally ready to throw strikes. That's something you got to do at the collegiate level, at the high school level. You can't do that at the major league level and expect to win ball games against teams that came into this series like the Minnesota Twins, 10 games over 500. They're a solid baseball team. They're competing for a playoff spot in the American League. And hey, they may chase down the team you're playing next in the Cleveland Guardians for the AL Central. Who knows? They've got a lot of injuries, the Twins do, and they still were able to take 2 of 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies. So it was just the bullpen has not been good enough. We're going to talk coming up about if this two series road trip has changed a kind of focus for the trade deadline. Has it changed the hierarchy of what you need to acquire at the trade deadline? Maybe. I'll tell you my thoughts on that coming up. And I'm kind of fighting an internal battle with myself. But the bullpen has not been good enough lately. I trust Matt Strahm, even if he's been a little shaky. I trust Jeff Hoffman with my life pretty much at this point, but Kerkering's been a little bit shaky. Gregory Soto has been good in his role, but this whole idea, right? They keep preaching this on the broadcast about how Rob Thompson thinks Greg Soto needs more high leverage innings. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He has not been good in those spots since the Phillies have acquired him. He's been good at points in the 6th or 7th or sometimes maybe even the 8th inning. I'm not throwing him in the 9th inning of a tie ball game. I'm not. He's not been ready for the moment. You can't put guys out there that aren't ready like that. So I can't give Greg Soto those high leverage innings. So I don't love that either. And the other thing we got to talk about too, like, I don't know what's going on with Brandon Marsh right now. I don't know if he's hurt. Like, it seemed like he was a little bit hampered today throughout the game. Like, we know he's been battling through some stuff. He had that bicep or arm soreness or elbow soreness or whatever it was that kept him out of one of the games of this series. You have other guys. If it's affecting your swing, that's one thing. If it's affecting you at the plate and in the field, well, dude, put Christian Pache out there. Put Weston Wilson out there. Put somebody else out there. You need to figure out a way that you have to have, like, the ball hit in the 7th inning by Carlos Santana that ends up tying up the ball game in a huge spot with 2 outs. Brandon Marsh needs to make that play. It almost looks like he just missed it. Now, I know, trust me, I know how tough of a play that is. People see that and they say, well, he got to the ball. You're playing in a park you're not familiar with. You're playing with a fence right there that you're going to have to run into at basically full speed. If you're already hurting a little bit, your natural inclination, well, not even if you're already hurting, if you're perfectly healthy, your natural inclination as an outfielder is, I can feel the wall there. I know I can sense it's right there. I know I'm going to hit it. I'm going to try and make this play running into it as soft as possible. As much as we champion Aaron Rowand in this town, if you're too young for that, look it up. I can't believe there's someone out there too young for the Aaron Rowand stuff, but running face first into the wall in center field at Citizens Bank Park right in front of the bullpen and demolishing his nose to make a catch to save a ball game. As much as we champion a guy like that, you have to fight through so much of your natural instincts to be able to do that. And I'm like, so tough play. I'm not saying, wow, he dropped one that was in his glove, in his tracks in left field. But in that point of the ball game, you got to find a way to make that catch. Those are the plays winning teams make. Those are the plays losing teams don't make. And today, the Philadelphia Phillies were a losing team. And part of that is because of that misplay. I will call it a misplay by Brandon Marsh out in left field. Even though it was a difficult play, I'd expect a fielder of his caliber to be able to make that catch. So it's just like, I don't know. So much stuff has to go wrong for a team like the Philadelphia Phillies with all the talent on this roster to blow 3-run leads late. And yet they've done it multiple times on this road trip. They're in a really, really rough spot right now. Now, again, go back to the perspective I gave you at the start of the episode. They're still the best team in baseball. Record-wise, the Braves lost today. They're still in fine shape in the division. They're still up on the Dodgers. They're up on everybody. Like, they're still good. And maybe it's just like they need to get home. They need some home cooking. They play much better at Citizens Bank Park. You got a big couple of series. We're going to talk about a big stretch that's coming up on the schedule in our final segment of today's episode. But the Phillies need to find something right now. They are scrambling a little bit. What would really help is one of those games, because the pitching was really darn good in this series against the Twins when it comes to the starting pitching. What you got from your starters. Nola was good today. Wheeler was unbelievable last night. Ranger was pretty good in game one. But you need to have some semblance of an offense to make this a little bit better, and you need the bullpen to be a little bit more consistent to save these starting pitchers from having wins taken away from them. That's what they did today. Aaron Nola should have had a win. Unfortunately, the team didn't carry their end of the bargain. So, I don't know. Does Rob Thompson need to be better with bullpen decisions? Maybe. Are there really many more guys outside of Hoffman and Strahm right now that you trust, though? Like, he's in kind of a tight spot because guys are struggling. It feels like a different team we're watching right now than what we were watching pre-All-Star break. And while that might not mean, like, and I don't think it does, I don't think it means that this team is now all of a sudden not the best team in baseball. All of a sudden they're not as talented as we thought they were. No, I always go with the bigger sample size. It does mean, though, that we may need to reevaluate what is most important for the Philadelphia Phillies to add at the trade deadline. So coming up next, we're going to get into a discussion about if there are some new cracks in the armor with the Philadelphia Phillies that we need to take note of ahead of the July 30th trade deadline, or rather that Dave Dombrowski needs to take note of. First, though, let's talk about our title sponsor, Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yeah, of course, everybody wants to go to, like, Tampa. Everybody wants to go to L.A. Everybody wants to go to, maybe Cancun or something like that. But you don't want to admit that you want to go to your rival cities, right? Well, with Booking.com, they're going to make you fall in love with every city, including your rivals. They've got hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You got to go ahead and check them out. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So book today on Booking.com, or you can also, if it's more convenient for you, book today on the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Let's also talk about FanDuel, because I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop or even slow down. But this is a slow time of the year, right? Basketball's finished. Hockey's finished. Football did just start training camp today. Shout out the Eagles, but they're not playing games yet. Baseball is basically the only game in town. And while there are games every day, well, sometimes you need a little bit extra to get you interested in what's going on in the sports world right now. Well, FanDuel has that for you. Not only can you open up the app at any time and dream up bets, futures, current baseball bets, stuff on football, basketball, hockey, the coming seasons, they've already got props up there for you, but they've also got really cool deals for you every day. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and you can start making the most out of your summer. So the trade deadline is coming up. It's July 30th at 6 p.m. So we don't have too much more time until we reach that. I mean, you're looking at it and you say, okay, when you look at the trade deadline, you talked to us already, Connor, about bullpen and outfield and those being the two main spots. You got about, 6 days until that happens, the trade deadline. So it should start to heat up here in the next couple of days. The whispers are going to get louder. The time you're really going to start to hear stuff is probably over this weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be when you start to get the real hot stove type stuff. Can you use hot stove for the trade deadline, or is it just an off-season thing? These are the type of thoughts that run through my head as I'm just talking to you. But whatever you want to call it, yes, we're going to get some trades for the Philadelphia Phillies. Yes, they're going to make moves. Yes, Dave Dombrowski is going to be aggressive. I'm starting to reevaluate. Like, if I put myself in Dave Dombrowski's shoes, They'd probably be too big for me. He's a very tall man. But I would also be thinking through right now, do I have the right priority list when it comes to what is most helpful to this team to add? And I've gone through a flip-flop over the past week or so. So I started out as all year long, basically, since we started talking about the trade deadline, not all year, but the past month or so, it's been outfield, 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 then more outfield. You haven't had a lot of production from out there. You've got some guys that seem like platoon players who can't hit either a certain handedness or at all. You got guys that you had to release in Whit Merrifield, like David Dahl, because of up-down roster moves or just flat-out non-production. The outfield has been the Achilles heel of this team. Maybe not the Achilles heel, because Achilles heel indicates a fatal flaw. I don't believe the outfield is a fatal flaw. More on that in a second. But the outfield has been the major point of, I don't want to say failure, but weakness for the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll just simplify it and call it that. They haven't produced. They've been solid defensively at points. Not today, but they've been solid defensively at points. They've taken care of business the way you need to be the best team in baseball, but you can get more out of that unit. And the way you do that is by adding to the outfield at the All-Star break. There's some big-name outfielders. Luis Robert, Brent Rooker, Jazz Chisholm. We talked through all of these guys in a previous episode. I believe it's still pinned to our YouTube channel, but if not, you can scroll back and see my breakdown of who should the Phillies target at the trade deadline. Outfield's always been the top priority. That has shifted for me because when I look at the outfield, they're not on an island. The outfield is viewed as different than the infield. But at the end of the day, it's 9 guys in a lineup, and that lineup is going to include, when the Phillies are at their best, an all-star caliber catcher, an all-star starter at first base, an all-star starter at shortstop, an all-star starter at third base. 4 of your 5 spots in the infield, not counting pitcher, obviously, even though pitchers are infielders, pitchers are athletes. I got your back, pitchers. The 4 of the 5 true position player spots in the infield are all-star caliber players right now. Bryson Stott, at his peak, is probably an all-star caliber player. He hasn't played close to his peak this year. Defensively, he's good, but the infield can make up for the outfield. I guess you could say the starting pitching could make up for the bullpen. But ultimately, once Aaron Nola or Zach Wheeler or Ranger Suarez or Christopher Sanchez or whoever in the 5th spot in the rotation at any given time gives that ball up to Rob Thompson, this game can get ugly quick, as you've seen, without the correct pieces in the bullpen. And this could be just this slumping time for the bullpen. A couple guys are struggling all at once. Matt Strahm hasn't looked as dominant. Ryan Kirkring is kind of on shaky footing. Sir Anthony Dominguez hasn't really come out of his 2-year-long slump the way that you would have hoped. Gregory Soto's been good in certain roles, but in big roles, he's not great. Jose Alvarado has been nearly unusable. He has just looked really, really rough. Those guys are probably, outside of Jeff Hoffman, I believe that every other Philadelphia Phillies reliever has a higher ceiling than the way they're performing right now. Doesn't mean they'll reach it. I just mean that they're better than the way they're playing. So I don't know. Here's the internal battle I'm fighting. If you're the Philadelphia Phillies, do you evaluate what's going on with the team right now and trust that? Or do you evaluate what you've seen from the team over the full season, which has been largely good and would indicate more outfield as the necessity, and go with the bigger sample size? Is it the now or the more? And it's very hard to pick, but being prisoner of the moment, and maybe it's because I just watched the bullpen be a big part of why the Philadelphia Phillies lost today's baseball game, I'm going to go with the now. And I think the bullpen is the higher priority at the trade deadline. I do. If you had to ask me, can I go get, let's just call it the top guys, right? Luis Robert, assuming he's healthy. Luis Robert, and go get that healthy player and put him into the outfield and get that level of production, or get Mason Miller and have a lockdown closer and know that when I get to the 9th inning, this ball game is, for all intents and purposes, over. I'm going with Mason Miller. I'm going and getting that guy. That is the number one guy I want at the trade deadline. If you told me it was Mason Miller and nobody, or 2 outfielders and not Mason Miller, I'd have to add the multiple players, because I think you're going to have to add to the outfield to give yourself a true shot at the world. Well, not true shot, but your best shot at the World Series. But if I'm starting somewhere, it's on the phone with Oakland saying, what is Mason Miller going to cost me? And then we'll figure out what we have left to use to acquire an outfielder in a smart sense without giving up too much in one trade deadline. But I've shifted, man. The bullpen needs help right now. Maybe it just takes some of these guys coming out of it, but to me, it takes some acquisitions as well. Maybe you get 2 guys in the bullpen. Feel a lot better about that. I still think at the end of the day, Alvarado's going to be okay long term. I'm holding out hope. I know Strom and Hoffman are still good. And I think Kerkering will get to a spot. Like, he's going to go through growing pains and stretches of a season. We got a long way till the postseason, folks. It's still July. Yeah, I get through August. I get through September. 2 months. Like, think about what was going on 2 months ago. I got to do my months backwards. April, May. So, like, this would be the equivalent of, like, going back to the middle or the late part of May. So much stuff has happened between then and now. This team could look totally different, even with just the players you have in-house. So I'm not panicking. You shouldn't for the best team in baseball. Nobody should be panicking right now. But I am reevaluating and saying the bullpen is the point where you need a little bit more help than the outfield. That's at least my thought. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a big stretch of the season that the Philadelphia Phillies are probably already in, but heading into with this upcoming homestand. We'll get into that coming up as we wrap up today's episode. But let's talk about Game Time first. All right. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They got killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, their lowest price guarantee. They got everything. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, and now's a great time. I'm about to run into a segment here where I talk about all the great home opponents the Philadelphia Phillies have coming up, marquee matchups, national games, stuff that the entire baseball world is going to have their eyes on. And you have a chance, if you're in the Philadelphia area, to go on Game Time and get the best value tickets in the best seats for these great games, to watch the best team in baseball take on some of the other great teams in baseball. So why not do it with Game Time? I mean, think about it. If you had an opportunity to see your view from your seat before you got it, to know the all-in prices, fees, all that stuff, like you don't get hit with any hidden fees at the end, and a guarantee that you're getting the best seat, or 110% of your money back if you can find another seat with better pricing in the same row and section, why wouldn't you do that? Exactly. That's the right answer. There's no reason not to. And I'll make it even better for you, all right? You download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. And you can do it. It's not just baseball games. It's any sports games, theater, concerts, comedy, all of that great stuff. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with our friends over at Game Time. All right, let's look at this stretch that the Philadelphia Phillies have coming up, because they are in a very interesting part of the schedule. This could be, when we look back at it, the hardest stretch of their schedule all year. So they just finished up a 3-game series with the Twins, who came in 10 games over 500. The Pirates, they're not exactly pushovers. They're not a great team. But now you play the Guardians. When you look at the standings, the overall standings in Major League Baseball, the Guardians, by winning percentage, are tied for the second best mark in baseball with the Baltimore Orioles. The Guardians have won 60 games. They're 60-40, 20 over 500. They're a darn good baseball team. You've got them at home for 3 games starting on Friday. Tomorrow an off day, but then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Guardian series is going to be very interesting. My gut feeling, just seeing like Cleveland, is that they're not that good of a team. Their record would indicate they're that good of a team. It's interesting because they were not expected to be this good this year. The Phillies, you can kind of see it a little bit more. Doesn't mean you underestimate them. They're coming in here, and they've had a really good season so far. Then, oh yeah, you get a nice little break with another 60-win team in the Yankees for 3 games next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, against the Yankees to round out July. That is not ideal. Oh, and then after that, you're going on a tough West Coast road trip. You got 3 against the Mariners out in Seattle. You've got 3 against the Dodgers out in LA. It's a brutal, brutal stretch. And if you're not playing your best baseball, this could feel a little different when we're done that, when it comes to the standing in the division, the standing in the league, the standing as the best team in baseball. The Phillies need to figure their stuff out. This is not the time to not be playing your best baseball. And after that, I mean, they go to the Diamondbacks for 4 games, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They have got a 3, 6, 10-game West Coast road trip on the heels of playing two of the best teams in the American League. It's a really tough stretch of the schedule right now. If you can make it through this and survive, right? I'm going to put this out there right now. This is the absolute baseline, well, not baseline test, but like this is the ultimate test, we'll call it, for the Philadelphia Phillies in the regular season in 2024. You are not playing your best baseball. Your bullpen feels like they're in disarray right now. Your starting rotation is not nearly as consistent. Your offense hasn't been able to create as many opportunities as you consistently did in the first half of the season. On top of that, you're playing two really tough teams at home. You've lost two series going into it, so no momentum there. Then you're going to go on the road for a long West Coast trip against some really darn good baseball teams out there. If you can make it through this stretch, and when everything's all said and done, and you get on that plane to head home from Arizona, and you are still either the best team in baseball or the best team in the National League, test passed with flying colors. If you are the best team in baseball and best team in the National League, you should also be the best team in your division still, obviously. But without those first two, right? If you're still just leading the National League East, you're okay. Like, right, you survive. You should absolutely still be leading the East. The Braves already dropped another game today. They're in shambles. I don't know. I may be more worried about the Mets at this point than the Braves when it comes to the NL East title. The Phillies should still have that locked up. But my point is, if this is something that this team can withstand, I'm going to believe that they can withstand anything. Tough challenges, if you can overcome them, make you believe in the team anymore. It's that whole conversation we had at the start of the year where it's like, they haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody. And then they play great teams and they beat them too. It's a confirmation of what we thought. If this team is as good as what we think they are, they will be able to rally and survive this stretch. Maybe not play like 600 ball over these next couple of series, but be able to generally hold serve with the rest of baseball will feel really good. If they can't, well, we may have some further questions. And mixed in there is the trade deadline and guys you can add and how this team could look better and all that stuff. So this may be the most important 2-week stretch of the regular season that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to have. Buckle up, folks. It's got to be interesting. It can't all just be a cakewalk, walk in the park, go win 110 games and not have to think twice about anything the rest of the way and no major injuries and nothing. Like, there's always points in the season where you doubt how good a team can be. We're in one of those spots right now for the Philadelphia Phillies. Great teams disprove any doubt. Okay teams survive the doubt. Not as okay teams crumble under the pressure of having a little bit of adversity. The Phillies have been through plenty of adversity. This locker room, there is none better in Major League Baseball. The manager, say what you want about his bullpen decisions. He's as good as anybody in baseball at keeping his team focused and level-headed, not panicking. Rob Thompson's great at that. And Dave Dombrowski, you have one of the best GMs in the sport. President of Baseball Operations. My apologies. Got to get the title right. You have one of the best Pobos in the sport who's going to go out there and make his team better before next Tuesday at 6 p.m. So I believe they're going to come out of it. I still have faith in this team. I'm not hitting any panic button or anywhere close to it. It just doesn't feel as good to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan today as it might have a couple weeks ago. But folks, I've said it to you a bunch of times. I'll say it to you one more time. That right there is baseball. Whew. All right. Coming up tomorrow's episode, we're going to have an off day. So we're just going to take a look in general at what the Philadelphia Phillies need to correct. I'm going to take a deeper dive into the offensive struggles, look at what parts of the lineup are really not producing and who's been struggling as of late. It's also a chance to get a better grip on where this team is in the NL East. We're going to look at scenarios for teams chasing them down and how likely it is that any team is able to catch them over the rest of the season. And we're also going to get a little bit more on the trade deadline, as there's a wealth of information and rumors as we draw closer to the trade deadline to discuss when it comes to who the Philadelphia Phillies could add. So a lot of stuff to get into on tomorrow's episode. Thank goodness, an off day as the Phillies travel back from Minnesota to the friendly confines of Citizens Bank Park and hopefully have a better series. But that's all for today's episode. I'm going to go not think about baseball for a little bit. Thank you for checking us out. Once again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube. That's the number one thing that can help us out here on Locked On Phillies. If you haven't done that and you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It takes like 2 seconds. It gets you notifications when new episodes are posted. It really helps us out. So I'd appreciate it if you did that. And I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.